The stories presented in this video are real, but we have changed the characters' names and altered images to protect their identities. The creator of this video is not an investigative officer. These narratives have been sourced from various internet platforms. Our intent is not to accuse or target anyone in particular. Thank you for understanding.
Welcome to True Crime Stories Hub. Today in this true crime documentary, we will discuss one of the shocking family betrayal stories in which husband betrayed wife and tried to kill his 9-year-old daughter as well. On the evening of December 25, 2009, Shelly Daniszewski had just finished spending Christmas with her 2 children in Manhattan, New York. In the days that followed, Shelly got ready to spend New Year's Eve with her family. But on December 31, 2009, she was discovered dead in her bathtub at the apartment complex in Dorchester Tower. The case was closed when the initial inquiry determined that Shelly's death was caused by an accident. Some investigators, however, were troubled by some details of this alleged tragedy and resolved to find out why a young, aspirational woman was discovered dead in her house. 10 years later, it would be revealed that Shelly was murdered by someone who had once professed to love her, not by accident. In one instance, Rod Covlin became so envious that he went to tremendous measures to obtain his wife's wealth. Shelly Daniszewski was 34 years old, residing in New York, and working as a financial advisor in 1998. Shelly had a gentle disposition that was hard to ignore, and her elegant aura could draw attention to herself right away. Shelly was also incredibly ambitious, which is another fact about her. After graduating from college with a degree in marketing, she began working in the financial industry in New York. Her dedication to her career and perseverance eventually made her a prosperous financial counselor in New York with a number of well-known clientele. Shelly was known for her ability to complete tasks swiftly by everyone who worked with her or had her as their financial counselor. For a woman of her age, Shelly was succeeding professionally, but her personal life was a whole other ball of mud. Shelly was in her second half of her 30s and still had not met a life partner. After making significant progress in her career, Shelly realized it was time to concentrate on her personal life and begin a family with a partner who shared her beliefs and aspirations. In the end, Shelly's search for a life companion was fulfilled by fate. She went to a gathering for Jewish singles in February 1998 at a bar called Le Bar Bat in Manhattan's Hell's Kitchen. Since it was a gathering for like-minded individuals, it was the perfect opportunity for her to finally meet a life partner and put an end to her protracted search. It was love at first sight when Shelly met Roderick Covlin, a 25-year-old male, at the event. It was actually more than that, as Shelly called her sister Eve a few hours after meeting Rod to inform her that she was en route to Las Vegas to marry Rod. The unique bond between Shelly and Rod remained, despite her sister's advice at the time to delay making such a significant life decision. The 11-year age gap between Shelly and Rod didn't worry either of them, and they became engaged a few weeks after the singles party. Rod and Shelly have shared their partner's incredible bond with their families. In September 1998, 7 months after their initial encounter, Rod Covlin and Shelly Daniszewski were married in a joyous ceremony witnessed by their loved ones. The couple welcomed their first child, a girl they called Anna, in 2000, 2 years after they were married. Rod and Shelly developed a closer bond and became inseparable over the first few years of their marriage. The couple was quite involved in their local Jewish community because they were both Jewish and Shelly had grown up in an Orthodox Jewish background. After a few years of good times, Rod and Shelly began to see that they didn't have as much in common as they had initially believed when they first met and got married in 1998. A diligent worker, Shelly continued to advance in her profession and eventually rose to the position of Senior Vice President for Private Wealth Management at UBS. Roderick, on the other hand, was the total antithesis of his wife. When he was unsuccessful in his original attempt to become a stockbroker, He chose to live off of his wife's wealth. Shelly even provided funding for a few of her husband's business endeavors because she wanted him to succeed like her, but each failed since Rod showed no interest. Sheila loved her husband, thus she was okay with him not being able to achieve the same success as her. However, when Rod became obsessed with backgammon gambling, things began to shift. After winning a few games at first, Rod made the decision to make money from it. He would travel across the nation for days at a time to play in various backgammon events. He would play the game for hours at home in order to improve his skills. However, that wasn't the only issue. Over time, Rod also began surreptitiously searching other websites and social media sites for women to date. He was so into it that he once spent a day contacting around 40 ladies on Facebook, the most of whom were backgammon players he had met at various tournaments. By this time, Rod cared more about backgammon than he did for his wife or children. In addition to making Sheila's situation worse, he had begun to have unexpected outbursts of wrath, leading his wife to suspect that he was bipolar. Sheila's troubles didn't end when she became pregnant with twins and lost both of them in an early delivery. One baby passed away while still in the womb, and the other died soon after. The couple desired another child, but the doctors informed Sheila that she would not be able to conceive again. In order to have a son named Miles, Rod and Sheila had to use an egg donor in 2006. Rod had gradually grown so poisonous that he constantly reminded Sheila that they needed to seek an egg donor to conceive their baby because of her. He continued, however, and eventually revealed to their kid that Sheila was not his original mother. Rod and Sheila's marriage was irreparably ruined in 2008, precisely 10 years after they first met and were married. The situation had become so bad that Rod even proposed an open marriage to his wife, which infuriated Sheila, an Orthodox Jew, who promptly turned down Rod's proposal. However, Rod continued his pattern of adultery and joined the Jewish dating site JDate using the fictitious identity James Early. Even Rod didn't conceal his affairs from his wife because he had become so toxic. Sheila had had enough of Rod, his infidelity, and his anger management problems by January 2009. She even expressed her fear that this would have negative consequences for her and her kids to her sister Eve. Sheila made the decision to live apart in April 2009 in order to prevent her children from being impacted by her husband's problems. However, Sheila requested that Rod move into an apartment across the hall in the same building since she didn't want the kids to be apart from their father. A month after Rod forcibly moved his belongings back into Sheila's apartment, the couple's efforts to make the new arrangement work quickly took a turn for the worse. Sheila filed for divorce in the middle of May 2009 after realizing her marriage was unsalvageable. Rod was compelled to return to the flat across the hall as a result, and the couple's life gradually began to return to normal. Sheila now gave her work her all attention and carried on with her prosperous career. She also began dating other men after she and Rod had formally split up. Her personal and professional lives were flourishing, and she was once again a contented lady. Sheila's ex-partner was not pleased with her success and, in the last years of their marriage, chose to make her life a living hell. To keep an eye on everything she did online, he planted surveillance cameras in the hallway and even infected her computer with spyware. However, he went farther and attempted to have Sheila fired by making up a complaint to her boss that she was abusing drugs and depleting their joint account. In actuality, Rod had taken out $7,200 from the account since their split, while Sheila had only taken out $800. Since Sheila's boss was already aware of the issue, Rod's attempt to have her fired failed. This infuriated Rod Covlin, who made the decision to become even more malevolent. Rod removed the children from their mother's apartment on July 8, 2009, and failed to return them by 8 p.m., despite having unfettered access to Sheila's residence. Sheila tried calling and messaging him, but he didn't answer. Sheila made the decision to call the police because she was concerned about the safety of her kids. Rod, on the other hand, had taken the children to a Columbia Presbyterian hospital to report Sheila for sexual abuse rather than taking them sightseeing or to a theme park. But Rod's lies were soon exposed by the Child Services Administration and the doctors, and the children were brought back to Sheila at 5:30 a.m. the following day. Rod continued to insist that his made-up story was authentic despite this. He complained to the NYPD's Special Victims Unit about Sheila's fictitious abuse. However, detectives in the special unit came to the same conclusion as the physicians and ACS agents at Columbia Presbyterian Hospital. Rod was lying, and the investigation was closed. This decision backfired as well, as the family court judge handling Rod and Sheila's divorce case restricted his visitation rights and only let him to see his kids under formal court supervision. In addition, the court mandated that Rod give Sheila $425 in child support. He was even more enraged when he was told he didn't have the money and that he couldn't use it for backgammon gaming. When Rod choked Sheila and threatened to murder her, the rage quickly escalated into physical abuse. Sheila immediately obtained a protective order from the court because she was afraid for her life and the lives of her children. Rod had remained a part of Sheila's will until now. However, Sheila made the decision to cut out her ex-husband from her life completely and permanently on December 29, 2009, and she requested that a state attorney take Rod's name out of her will. Sheila went on a date with someone she had just met on JDate on December 30, 2009, leaving the kids with a babysitter. She played with them for a while after her date and then put them to bed. Sheila signed into her JDate profile at 10:13 p.m. and then logged off a short while later. Sheila's 9-year-old daughter Anna woke up at 7 in the morning on December 31st, the day she was scheduled to meet with her estate attorney and finally put an end to her husband's case. She proceeded to wake her mother in her room. Sheila was not in her room, though, when Anna arrived. Then she entered the restroom and screamed as soon as she opened the door. Sheila was in a pool of blood, face down. Rod, Anna's father, rushed into their flat after Anna called him right away. After removing Sheila from the tub, Rod dialed 911 and gave her a cardiopulmonary resuscitation. First responders were already at Sheila's apartment when the police arrived, and they told them that the deceased was in the flat's back bathroom. Soon, the detectives showed up at the scene as well. Rod informed them that he thought Sheila had fallen during an early morning shower and struck her head on the bathtub. He even displayed to the investigators a cupboard above the bathtub that had some of its hinges removed. Additionally, the investigators believed that it was really an unfortunate accident. Before the officers wrapped up the investigation and notified Sheila's family of her passing, they asked a few more questions of Rod, the first adult to come into contact with Sheila's body, and Anna, who discovered her dead body. Rottermel, one of the detectives, returned to his office and reviewed the crime scene facts. Rottermel thought something was wrong since a lot of what he observed that morning didn't make sense, even if the facts suggested that Sheila's death was an accident. Rod Covlin had told him about the slip and fall, but the angle of the pulled-off cabinet door and the body's position didn't match. Rottermel also observed that the victim's face, lips, and right arm had red scratch marks and bruises, which was out of the ordinary for someone who had just taken a shower. After following Sheila's movements from the night before, the investigator became even more interested in the reason for her death after learning of one specific fact. Sheila got a keratin treatment the day before she passed away, and she was instructed not to wash her hair for the next 72 hours. It prompted a query. Given that she was not to wash her hair for the following 3 days, why would Sheila choose to take a bath? Rod's clothing was clean when he described the incident to the investigating officer, but he had also claimed to have taken Sheila's body out of the blood-stained water. Detective Rottermel wanted to wait for the results of Sheila's autopsy before conducting a thorough forensic search of the crime scene. Unfortunately, Shelly Daniszewski's ultra-Orthodox Jewish family opposed it due to their religious convictions. Therefore, it didn't happen. Since Detective Rottermel was unable to conduct much further research after this, the case was formally ended. Everyone who knew Sheila had been horrified to learn of her passing. Some of Sheila's friends and family, though, shared Detective Rottermel's suspicions on the reason behind her passing. It was disclosed by her sister Eve that Sheila always preferred showers over baths. Stephanie Goldman, one of Sheila's acquaintances, concurred with Eve's assertion and claimed that Sheila never even took a quick bath. Many family members of Shelly Daniszewski harbored suspicions that she had been the victim of cold-blooded murder by her ex-husband, Rod Covlin, even after her funeral. When Sheila's estate lawyer, Lance Meyer, told the family that Sheila planned to meet with him on the day of her death to remove her ex-husband from her will, the suspicion quickly became a definite belief. There was a straightforward explanation for the growing number of fingers pointing toward Rod Covlin. If she died while he was still in her will, he would receive $5.2 million. Sheila's family went to the authorities and asked them to revisit the case and carry out their investigation in light of these terrible new facts. The two chief detectives in the case, Detectives Rottermel and Francis Brennan, told the family that since the case was officially closed, they were unable to look into Sheila's death any further. The Daniszewskis were also informed by the detectives that allowing an autopsy on the victim's body was the only option to reopen the investigation. However, due to their religious convictions, that was not an option. The family took matters into their own hands and engaged Michael Swain, a private investigator, to investigate Sheila's death and Rod Covlin's involvement in it after the police declined to assist them without an autopsy. Upon visiting Sheila's apartment, Michael Swain observed that the cabinet hinge screws had been purposefully removed, making it impossible for someone with Sheila's slender frame to tear off the hinges, even if they were falling. Additionally, he observed that the bathroom was devoid of a bath towel, which was unexpected given Rod claimed that Sheila had gone to the bathroom to take a bath. Sheila's family consented to an autopsy 2 months after she passed away. Shelly Daniszewski's body was sent for an autopsy after the authorities received the court's order to exhume her body on March 1, 2010. A cracked hyoid, a frequent symptom of strangulation, was discovered in Sheila's body when the autopsy report was returned. Sheila's cause of death was reclassified from accident to homicide in April 2010 in light of the new information. To get a search warrant for her flat, the investigative team had to wait an additional 2 months. Melissa Shields, Sheila's friend, was the first to be interviewed from among those who had seen or spoken to the victim in the final hours of her life. Melissa informed the detectives that she had met Sheila just hours before she passed away and had a feeling something wasn't right. Sheila informed her friend that she thought her ex-husband was following her when she questioned her about it. Roderick Covlin, the ex-husband of Shelly Daniszewski, refused to cooperate with the authorities when it was his turn to be interviewed. He was in contact with a woman from North Carolina named Deborah Oleis, according to his phone records and email correspondence dated December 30, 2009. Deborah, a backgammon player Rod had met at a competition, was married and had 3 kids. Both of them had begun an affair outside of marriage, and Deborah had even gone to see Rod in New York. Rod and Deborah stayed up till 1:03 a.m. playing backgammon the night Sheila was killed. Before Rod went out to work on his Federation of Backgammon, Rod texted Deborah around 4 a.m. to let her know he had fallen asleep and hadn't done any work. At 4:13 a.m., Rod was captured on CCTV leaving the apartment complex. He returned a few minutes later and, in a departure from his usual antisocial behavior, offered the doorman a Snickers bar. It was estimated that Sheila passed away about 1:25 a.m. and 4:25 a.m., which was the precise window of time that Rod didn't communicate with Deborah. During the interview, Deborah only spoke positively about Rod and said nothing that would suggest that Rod was responsible for Sheila's death. Rod was unable to access the money Sheila had left him in her will because of the ongoing investigation and murder case that was brought against him in 2011. Additionally, Rod's custody fight with their maternal uncle resulted in the placement of his children with their parents. Rod's parents got into violent confrontations after learning that he had been embezzling money from the Children's College Fund. The Children's College Fund gave Rod $84,000, which he used to travel with Deborah and play backgammon in various tournaments. Rod's parents exiled him and Deborah from their home because of his escalating aggressive behavior. He was so angry that he made the decision to murder his parents in order to recoup the money that Sheila and his kids had lost. He devised several alternative plans for murder. He first considered poisoning them by having his daughter Anna mix the poison into their tea. However, he quickly abandoned this idea and made the decision to enter the house through the basement window, murder his parents, take his kids, and then burn the house down. Deborah was involved in a few of his initiatives as well. He had told her everything, but she refused to join any of them and urged Rod to abandon them as well. The police were investigating many facets of the case in an attempt to gather reliable evidence against Rod, while Rod was occupied with devising a foolproof strategy to get rid of his parents. Rod attempted to frame his daughter Anna for Sheila's death after realizing he might be on the verge of being caught. He created a fake confession in Anna's email account, claiming that she killed her mother by pushing her in the bathroom. The fictitious email claims that Anna and Sheila argued the night before Sheila passed away over her going on dates. By 2014, Deborah had grown frightened of Rod as well, and the two began to drift apart. Deborah eventually called the police and revealed everything she knew about Rod and her plans throughout the years. Thus, Rod's decision to end their relationship was a grave error. On November 1, 2015, Rod Covlin was taken into custody by the police since they now had sufficient evidence against him. 2 months before the court-imposed 6-year wait period that would have allowed him to access Shelly's $5.2 million ended, the arrest was made. In addition to her testimony, Deborah produced hard drives with information from Rod's technological devices, which showed that Rod had murdered his wife in order to obtain custody of the kids. Rod Covlin's trial started in 2019 after he was charged with second-degree murder in 2016. At the Manhattan Supreme Court in New York, a 12-member jury heard testimony. According to the prosecution, Rod had always intended to get rid of Shelly. The question was only when. Additionally, the prosecution contended that Rod Covlin was the only one with a motive to kill Shelly Daniszewski, even though all of the evidence against him was circumstantial. One of the main witnesses in Rod's ex-girlfriend case, Patricia Swenson, testified in court that Rod became quite irate when discussing his ex-wife on a trip in August 2009. She added that he made numerous statements about wanting to kill Shelly throughout that trip. More and more incriminating evidence against Rod was shown to the court as the trial went on. At the end of the 8-week trial, the jury found Rod Covlin guilty of killing his ex-wife, Shelly Daniszewski, despite his attorney's efforts to prove his innocence. Roderick Covlin was sentenced by the court on April 10, 2019, to 25 years to life in prison for the murder of his ex-wife. Later, Rod Covlin filed an appeal against the court's ruling, but it was denied. He is presently incarcerated at New York's Attica Correctional Facility.